What up, humans? Welcome back to Story Kitchen. I'm Alora Scott, the storytelling Saiyan. So the very first scene of House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 4, really pissed me off. Daemon Targaryen was having a spooky nightmare and what seems to be a manifestation of his guilt. He's approached by young Rhaenyra, who says he created her and he's set on destroying her, and that he was jealous that Daddy Viserys loved Rhaenyra more than him. And then, in a fit of rage, he cuts off Dream Rhaenyra's head. Then we have a scene with Alice Rivers, the witch, where she basically shames him for the same reason, being jealous of Rhaenyra, who is the queen over him. And last, Daemon has a spooky vision of Laena, silent and haunting, and serving the men at his council table. And it's just, Daemon gets no respect on House of the Dragon, and I don't know what the fuck they're trying to say with his story. Let's cook. Really quick before we get started, my illustrated erotic visual novel Deliberate is out now. Visit the bookstore at alorascott.com to get an ebook or paperback copy of this absolutely unique and deliciously detailed smutty story. The writers of Hot D want Daemon to be the Team Black villain, and to do that, they're making Daemon's villainy hinge on two things: the abuse he subjects the women to in his life, and his desire for power. These two aspects intertwine in the show. He lies about Mysaria being pregnant, he neglects and insults Laena, he physically abuses Rhaenyra and undermines her as a ruler. But in the books, the exploration of manhood for Daemon is the exact opposite of what the show is representing. George R.R. Martin said that Daemon was his favorite character, the perfect gray, equal parts light and dark. And I think it's important to examine this construction of Daemon's personality, how he navigates the story being born a second son, a brother to a king, and a husband to a queen. Who is he as a man when he is not the main ruler, especially in a world ruled by men? How does he grow as a character under a woman with more power than him? And what purpose does he serve to keep that powerful woman on the throne and essentially his family alive? Prince of the City and the White Worm. Even though he was raised in a castle with all the comforts and wealth of being royalty, Book Daemon still hung out with the whores and the poors. He got them ghetto-ass gold cloaks all the way together, and even though he was brutal in stopping crime, Daemon did make the city safer. Daemon was removed as heir, but he was the prince of the city because the hood of King's Landing fucked with him. I think his relationship with Mysaria started off pretty good in the show, up until he lied on her being pregnant before abandoning her. In that scene, it was like he was looking for attention as opposed to his book counterpart, who was genuinely expecting a child with Mysaria and wanted to give their baby a dragon egg. Now, I do think he abandoned her romantically in the book, and she was angry about it, but the book also implies that he trusted her and relied on her extensive spy network later on in life. Laena. Before we talk about Laena, we have to talk about Daemon's first wife, Rhea Royce. In both book and show, she and Daemon fucking hated each other. He spent most of their marriage away from her, pursuing his relationship with Mysaria, and then warring in the Stepstones with Corlys Velaryon. Showrunner Ryan Condal would have the audience believe that Daemon, a famous prince with a large dragon, somehow murdered Rhea Royce with his own hands in a desperate, sloppy attempt to marry Rhaenyra.
Daemon's wife, the Lady Rhea Royce of Runestone, fell off her horse and her skull was crushed in the fall. So I stared at it and I was like, well, Daemon obviously went home and murdered his wife.
Which would not fly in that universe. Book canon, show canon, be damned. Book Rhea died in a riding accident while Daemon was miles away fighting in the Stepstone. She had witnesses taking care of her for 9 days until she passed. Daemon tried to claim his dead wife's inheritance, but because his relationship with her was so bad, Jane Arryn, the head of the Vale, kicked him out. And this brings us to Laena. At this point, Daemon was at his lowest. His brother Viserys wanted nothing to do with him. He'd just gotten banished from his ex-wife's homeland, and the only family that respected him or wanted him around was the Velaryons. In the show, young Laena and Daemon have great chemistry, but then they made him treat adult Laena with so much disrespect. In the time skip, adult Laena considers herself and is treated like Daemon's second choice wife after Rhaenyra. Book Daemon respected and loved Laena so much so that he killed her previous fiancée for the opportunity to marry her. She was pretty much the only woman powerful enough to tame his unpredictable wildcard ways. And Daemon also didn't neglect and abuse the daughters he had with Laena, but instead begged to bring his children to meet the king. Daemon's love for his family with Laena was the only reason that Viserys welcomed him back from exile. And when Laena was dying, Daemon and Rhaenyra moved heaven and earth to try and save her. In the show, Daemon laughs at Laena's funeral and basically fucks Rhaenyra on top of her coffin. Rhaenyra. It is clear in the book that Daemon groomed young Rhaenyra and attempted to ruin her reputation to force Viserys to marry her to him. I think that was pretty well done in the show. Now, his book version would never leave her in a dangerous brothel alone, but I do think it was portrayed well. Other than that, I don't like Daemon and Rhaenyra's relationship in the show because it is the culmination of everything the show is trying to make Daemon represent. He is irredeemably villainous in his attempt to gain access to Rhaenyra's power through marriage. Him killing Rhea Royce 5 minutes before her wedding. Him trying to run away with Rhaenyra at her wedding. Him mistreating Laena and fucking Rhaenyra at her funeral. There is no love and no respect between Daemon and Rhaenyra in the show, just like every other woman he has a relationship with. Rhaenyra basically begged him to marry her for his dragon. In the books, it was clear that Daemon and Rhaenyra and Laena were all in love with each other. They flew together, visited each other, engaged their kids together. Daemon and Rhaenyra only got married quickly after Laena's death because they were basically a throuple anyway, so them two just finished the job. When Show Rhaenyra is usurped, Daemon is the one to put the crown on her head. But that sweet moment is absolutely negated because Daemon's toxicity and contempt for her is on full display. Daemon ignores Rhaenyra when she's calling for him during her miscarriage. The show gave Daemon Book Rhaenys' lines, telling them to use all their dragon power against the Greens. He aggressively and openly disrespects Rhaenyra during their council meeting, and he chokes her during their argument. Giving Daemon Book Rhaenys' lines was especially designed to make Daemon seem as negative and aggressive as possible. I will give Daemon some grace for trying to convince Rhaenys to go with him to go jump Vhagar in season 2 episode 1, but only some, because that should have been Rhaenys saying all that, not Daemon, because at least somebody was saying that they should do something. Other than that, season 2, Daemon is worse. His writing is sloppier. Rhaenyra and Daemon's fight after Blood and Cheese comes from A, him having no network of spies, no relationship with Mysaria, and hiring 2 incompetent idiots to carry out the assassination, and B, an utter lack of trust, communication, and understanding with Rhaenyra. Book Daemon and Rhaenyra were in lockstep together with how they wanted to win the war, use the dragons wisely, and try to have as little deaths on their side as possible. Also, Book Daemon and Rhaenyra genuinely loved each other. They had a good, close relationship. They enjoyed being around each other, and of course, they trusted each other. In the show, Rhaenyra does not trust Daemon from the very first episode, and that mistrust and hostility keeps brewing and growing throughout the whole series. There is no love between them. Show Daemon is completely incompetent. Now his character is in Harrenhal, being haunted by his guilt and taunted by Alice Rivers the witch, and nothing else. He's made no progress for Rhaenyra's cause. So what the fuck are they doing with Daemon in the show? What does his character mean? At this point in the book, hell, this should have happened in the first episode of season 2. But at this point in the book, Daemon had Harrenhal and the Riverlands locked down. You know episode 3, the one called The Battle of the Burning Mill, where there was no battle, just a bunch of boys who died for nothing. Book Daemon was the one who orchestrated it and captured another castle and all its wealth. He did all this while also successfully coordinating Blood and Cheese with his spy network down in King's Landing. He did all this while having thousands of people declaring for Rhaenyra, the queen. That is the difference between Show Daemon and George R.R. Martin's Daemon. George R.R. Martin's Daemon is a man who has made mistakes, has made enemies, has been selfish, has been violent, has been punished for it, and he has learned from it. As he gets older and his life evolves, he learns to love. He learns to put other people before himself. George R.R. Martin's Daemon grows. George R.R. Martin's Daemon uses his experience to serve his family, uses his experience to serve his women, even in a world ruled by men, especially in a world ruled by men. The show is trying so hard to make Daemon this jealous, turbulent man with a weird inferiority complex that they're making him look like an amateur who's not bringing any of his life skills to the table. No tenderness, no growth, no change. He's not even being a badass because he hasn't gained any fucking support for Rhaenyra outside of Harrenhal. Show Daemon is the same person he was in season 1, episode 1. And he's honestly too fucking old to be acting like this. Worse, the show is ignoring what makes him such a compelling character. In the Dance of the Dragons, Daemon develops his leadership and manhood in a female-led story. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the show is building up for Daemon to have a redemption arc or to prove himself? I don't see them accomplishing it smoothly. And I honestly do think his ass is way too old to be having this light bulb moment, after being so messy throughout the whole show. But let me know your thoughts in the comments and we'll talk. Grab yourself a copy of Deliberate at alorascott.com, subscribe, leave me a like or a dislike, and I will see y'all again soon. Thank you. Goodbye.